Hello everyone and welcome back to another video of me talking about my favorite books, and today I am going to be talking about my favorite series of all time. And I've got I think 5 series to go through with you today. There are more on this list, however I have already talked about them in another video that was purely Christian fiction based. So some of my favorite series are Christian fiction series, and rather than just like rehashing the same thing, you can just go check out that video if you've missed it before. But I'm going to talk about favorite books. A lot of these I actually read in high school, and they make it onto this list because I've read them like 3 or 4 times since then. So like in high school, after high school, I read some of them during COVID and then some again since then. So they're just my favorites of all time. And to kick us off with a classic, I am starting with The Hunger Games. Oh, this series, it's just brilliant. If you happen to have gone your whole life without watching the movies or reading these books, part of me is a little jealous that you get to experience it for the first time, but then the other part of me is just like, oh my gosh, you've been missing out. And I encourage you, go read the books if you haven't read the books, and including these two, because while they are new, they just tie the series together so much more. It's just so much more rounded out than just the 3, which were incredible on their own, but then these ones just enhance them even more. I love when that happens, because there is a series here that I'll talk about that they added on 2 extra books after the original trilogy, and they just like weren't as good. But these ones, I just so think that they aid the story so much more. This one here, Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes, is the only one that I think I would say like, oh no, you like have to read the book to fully get it, because the other ones, the movie adaptations, are just incredible. But that one, I just think, for the fact that we're meant to like not like Snow, and not like you root for him in the book, but then like the development of his character just becoming like more and more evil is portrayed a lot better in the book, I think, than what they were able to do in the movie. Mainly because Tom Blythe, who played President Snow, is very attractive, and while yes, his charm is part of it and how he would have gotten away with things and that sort of thing, I just think that you see his you see his thought patterns, and you see the reason he makes the decisions that he makes, and I just feel like it was rounded out a whole lot more in the book compared to the movie. However, the rest of them, brilliant, incredible, love. I cannot wait for Sunrise on the Reaping movie to come out later this year. Oh, this series is just so good, and if you happen to live under a rock and have no idea what this series is about, it is a dystopian YA fiction series. It started off as a trilogy, has had 2 more added to it, and it starts off and it's about Katniss, and she lives 74 years after this war had taken place in their country that was the districts rising up against the capital, and the capital won. And since then, for these 74 years, they have been keeping them oppressed with this thing called the Hunger Games, which is an annual competition where 2 tributes from each of the 12 districts, so 24 tributes, get sent to the capital, and they have to compete in the Hunger Games, which is a fight to death. It is children killing children, which is insane to think about, and that's the whole point, is that the capital have made these games such entertainment for them to watch, and it's literally just kids murdering kids. It's horrific. That sounds horrible, but the whole thing is just so... Ow, my hand's really hurting from holding them like that. Oh, yeah, the whole thing is just like, it's so entertaining. You're just like, oh my gosh, I want them to get justice over the capital. How the capital getting away with this? In amongst it, there's like little bits of rebellion acts and different things where they're like standing up to the capital. I hope that's a good explanation, because it's just so much more than that. But I encourage you to read them again if you haven't read them in a while. The Hunger Games, they speak for themselves, really. Okay, so Hunger Games, that was dystopian. Actually, no, these aren't all dystopian. I was going to say all my favorite series are dystopian, but they're either kind of dystopian or fantasy, or just a little bit out of the ordinary, because I just think books, the beautiful thing that books do is that they just like pull you out of what you're facing in the real world, whether that's a good or bad thing, whatever. I just love the escape that you can have in books, and I think that happens a bit more for me on a higher level with books that aren't super realistic, you know? Anyway, okay, the next one we're going to talk about, I have actually talked about this trilogy before, and that is the Selection series, and this is the one that I was talking about where they added on an extra 2 books, and I just didn't like them as much. They just weren't as good. I think the suspense that is built up over these 3 books of like, oh my gosh, how's this gonna end? What's gonna happen with these people? What's gonna happen with those people? What's gonna happen there? I just feel like these 3 had way higher stakes, and then the other 2 were kind of just like, oh, nice. It was just kind of like a really drawn out epilogue, but it wasn't even focused on like directly on these main characters. So I don't know, didn't love it as much. But these 3, love, love, love. They are a mix of The Bachelor mixed with The Hunger Games a little bit, but only really in like the caste system where like all people are kind of like divided into these different categories. And it starts off, our main character, America, is pretty poor. Her family are in the category, they're number 5s. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all down to 7, I think. 1s are the royals. Then it's like soldiers, higher class people, whatever. 5s, they are the entertainers, they're musicians, they're artists, they're creatives, pretty much. And so they don't make a whole lot of money, but anyway, that's the family that America is from. And she has a secret love who is a boy that is in the caste lower than her, which is like, oh my gosh, you just like don't marry down. That's like far worse off for you than if you would have managed to raise up a caste, because the higher up the castes you get, the more money you have, the easier life is, yada yada. And anyway, so she has this secret love, and then the time that they're in, the prince has come of age to get married, and so that whenever a prince needs to marry, they hold this competition called the selection, where they choose women from all over the country to come and like compete for the prince's heart. And America obviously has no interest in that because she already has a boyfriend, but her mum is like, no, you must go in this, it'll be good for our family if you get in, blah 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 blah. Big shocker, she ends up getting selected in the selection, and she goes to live in the palace amongst all these girls who are trying to win the prince's heart. The prince himself, his parents, the king and queen, who you kind of just like, oh my gosh, do we love them? Do we not like them? Are they evil? They're like, we're all kind of oppressed because they're elevated, but like, are they really that bad? We'll see. I don't know. Anyway, she goes into this competition, and so then then she's like really reluctant to be there at first, and then it just kind of all unfolds, and it then kind of starts to tackle some of the like caste situation of, do we need this caste system? Does it serve our country well to just like have these rankings amongst our people? Should that be the way we live? But then there's rebel territories and like all that kind of stuff, and so it does get pretty exciting, even though it's literally like a love competition. I actually have been wanting to reread these again because I love them. They're so good. They're so sweet. They're YA, so it's all pretty clean, pretty safe. And I just love our main couple so much. And I will not tell you who they are because that is the journey you have to go on with these books. They're so good. Then our next one is another trilogy, which is the Prison Healer trilogy. I talk about this series all the time. I think I've talked about these as well. And every time someone asks me what books I recommend to them, if they're wanting to get into reading, whatever, I always suggest these books because they are just so good. They are by Lynette Noni, who is an Australian author. And I actually think that she's also Christian, which Kira, however you say her name, she is also Christian. And I feel like when I was reading maybe both of these trilogies, I don't know, there were like tiny little bits in them that I was like, is she Christian? Just like different themes woven in or different lines that I was like, that sounds a little Christian-y, I don't know. And then I like would go to the back, and then in the author's note, it's like, oh, thank you God for this gift. And I'm like, yes, they're Christian. Anyway, little side note. Prison Healer is about Kiva Meriden. So she has lived most of her life since she was a kid in this prison called Zalendov, which is where people get sent based on horrible crimes they've done. Some people are in there for not that big a deal, but classic. And basically anyone that gets sent to Zalendov gets sent there to die because the conditions are horrific. They're not treated well. They have to do such hard labor, and because they're not then fed well and looked after, their bodies just eventually kind of give in. So while they may not be like killed when they get there, all the circumstances that they're surrounded by just end up with them kind of getting sent there to die. Anyway, Kiva is in the prison because of something that happened when she was a child, and her dad got sent to prison and she just kind of got lumped in with him, and she grew up with her dad being the healer, and then she's been carrying on after him. And so when it starts, I think she's like 17, 18, but so she's been there for like 10 years. And so, since she was a kid, she's had a rough life, but she works as the prison healer, coming up with remedies for people, treating the soldiers, treating the inmates, all that sort of stuff. Then the rebel queen ends up in the prison, because there's always rebels in these kind of things. When she arrives, she's just so sick. She's not healthy. She's not in a good way. She's pretty much unconscious the whole time. And because she's a rebel, she gets sentenced to this thing called the trial by ordeal, which is facing something from each element. So earth, wind, fire, water. And Kiva's got a soft heart. She's for the people. And she's like, that's not fair. This lady is literally on death's door. How is she meant to compete in that? I'll stand in her place. Which is like, what? Why would you do that? And so she fills in for the rebel queen in these ordeals, and they're pretty hectic. So the first book is based around all of that. And then she like meets this guy, kind of comes to prison. They form a bit of a friendship. She's like, I can't get too close to anyone, but obviously they form a friendship. And anyway, that's what the first book's about. I can't really tell you what the rest of the series is about, because you're just gonna have to discover that for yourself. And I will say, this book, I often describe it as being really like gloomy in terms of the setting. They're in this prison. You get the impression that it's really grungy, dark, wet, like muddy, that kind of vibe. Like it's not nice. And so I feel like when I first read this trilogy, the first time I read this one, I was like, oh, this just feels so dark. Like what's drawing me in? But then obviously by the end, I was hooked. But then I will say that these two books aren't like that. These two are a lot more light, especially this one. The second one is a lot more light, and then the third one kind of goes into all other stuff. I would just say, if you've only read Prison Healer and you were like, oh, it's a bit dark and gloomy, I would highly encourage you to keep going with this series. When I first read them, I rated this one 3 stars, this one 5, and I think this one 4. And then I reread these last year and gave them all 5 stars, because I just fell in love with them even more. The things that I didn't see coming in some of the books that I then was kind of anticipating the next time, I was just like, oh, I just love this series so much. So if you want a fun time, oh, and I should mention, it's got like elemental magic in it. So the royal family have elemental magic, and that's kind of where the rebels are like trying to rise up against that, because they're just like, well, we don't have powers. Why should we just be under the rule of people that have powers? Everyone should be equal. That's like their mentality. Anyway, love. And then I don't think I've talked about this series, and if I have, I'm sorry, but that's okay. I just love it so much. And this is another one that I read when I was in high school. I think I probably read them in as early as year 8, so like 16 years ago. And I reread them in COVID, I remember. I think I probably read them maybe twice throughout high school. Then I reread them in COVID, and I only had 4 of them. There's 6 books in the series. I only have 4 of them, and I was reading them, and I was getting to the end of the 3rd book and then starting the 4th book, and I was like, I still remember so much more happening. How are they going to make this happen in just one, like in the last book? And I was like, what? But I swear there's only 4 of them. And then I was reading the 4th one, and I was like, no, this can't be right. And so I googled it, and it turned out there was 6 books, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have the next ones. What? And then I was trying so hard to find the 5th and the 6th in the same covers as the ones that I have, because they're personally my favorite. The other ones like feel quite childish, and while they are for a young audience, they're still great books. And so I was like, I just don't want to have these like cringe books. Anyway, I ended up just like buying these covers, because I was like, I need to have the 5th and 6th book so I can read them and have a finished series. And so I had them, they didn't match. And then I happened to be up the coast one time in an op shop, and I found the 6th book in the cover that I needed. So I got that. And then I think it was like a year later, I was in another op shop, and I happened to find the 5th book in the same cover that I had. And so now I have the fully complete series, and they all match, and they're all perfect. And they are the Gallagher Girls books. I love these books so much. The Gallagher Girls books, they're so fun. They are about Cameron Morgan. She is, I think, 15 when the books start, and she goes to the Gallagher Girls. What is it? Gallagher Girls Academy something. Gosh, I should know because I've read it that many times. She goes to the Gallagher Girls Academy, and from the outside world, people think that this school is just an all-girls private school, a bit stuck up, snotty nose, snobby? Anyway, like stuck up rich girls vibe, really prestigious, and so the neighboring town are just kind of like, oh yeah, that private school over there. Like they don't really have anything to do with each other. But little do they know, the Gallagher Academy for Exceptional Girls, that's what it's called, is a school for spies, which is really fun. So they're learning to become spies from their teenage years, and kind of like upon graduating, they then start getting recruited for the FBI, CIA, what's the one starting with I? Not Intel. Anyway, they start getting recruited for like MI6, all those kind of things. And so in the first book, she meets a town boy and they start to kind of form a bit of a crush on each other. And then her and her friends, who are also obviously training to be spies, start using the things that they're learning in school to their advantage for her to have this like secret relationship with this boy. And it's just like, this book it's fun, it's cute, it's an introduction book. So it's not super high stakes. It's just the first one. And then I would say, and then these books then all feel like a much bigger story. However, you do need to read this first. So it's just so good, because even stuff that's in this is like revealed right at the end of the 6th book. And so they're just so fun. They like get this new teacher at the start of the year. So basically they're going into a new school year. I think they're starting like year 9. So they're starting the high school years of America. And they get this new teacher who is just like, he's like a young, attractive teacher who just is really cool. And so they're all just like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. Love this. And don't worry, nothing sus happens there. It is so fine. It's not Pretty Little Lies. But basically they just, their knowledge starts to expand heaps. And then as the books go on, they start to get kind of caught up in these really big world events and different things. And there's romance in it, there's fun female friendships, and there's spies, and that is just so fun, and I don't know why you wouldn't want to read it. So I think that you should. And Shah, if you were watching this, Shah only read the first one and then didn't continue the series, but she needs to. And so Shah, this is your reminder to continue this series. If you haven't read it, read it. If you know me personally, you can absolutely borrow it. The Gallagher Girls books. And then our last series is actually a duology, and I do not have the physical copies, which is a crime in and of itself. And I have talked about this series before, but it is the River Enchanted.
Please try again, you.
Oh my gosh, my phone is in my bedroom and Siri just responded to me. Abby's out at the moment, and I was like, whose phone's going off? It's my phone. Oh, because I said series. Totally. Anyway, this duology is A River Enchanted and Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. They are very kind of, I've tried to explain this duology before and I found it really hard. But basically, again, there's a bit of like elemental magic in it. Where it starts is young girls on this island that they live on start to disappear, and so they need to kind of like they need to get a bard, which is basically someone who plays music and sings and stuff, and it's typically in like a bit of a mythical fantasy kind of vibe. They need him to sing songs to the different elemental spirits to get answers as to where these girls are going, what's happening with this island. So the main character, Jack, is the bard that they get. Then the main female is the princess, and again, why do I find it so hard to explain it? Basically, girls are going missing. They need to find out from the different elemental spirits what's going on the island, what wrong they need to correct, sort of thing. But it's just this really beautiful picture of, again, this author is Christian, and so it's this really beautiful picture of what it means to kind of believe in something beyond the natural and to trust in this thing that you can't see. Obviously, it's got a bit of like a darker kind of element to it. Maybe not obvious, but I guess most magic things in books, if you've read fantasy, have a darkness to them, but not in a bad way. It's not that bad, don't worry. I really struggle. I should have pre-planned. It's just this adventure that they go on, they grow closer. It follows kind of two main pairs of people. So there's Jack and Adana, and then blanking on their names, but they are a couple. They are not a couple, but you know, we want them to be. So it kind of follows four main characters, their different points of view and the way that they differently experience these things, because like Jack is the one that's very directly interacting with the spirits. Adana is the princess, so she's trying to like protect her land and make sure her people are okay. Then there's a guy that's a head soldier, and he's just very logical, straight to the point, doesn't really believe the whole kind of like spirit side of things. And then he's actually married to a woman who very much does believe in them, and so they just kind of like all have different stakes in the game and different beliefs, and I just think it's a really beautiful picture of believing in things that you can't see, which is like believing in God. And so very beautiful duology, and like especially the end of the second one is very much just like, I very much see the Christian themes in this. They are just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful books. I actually really want to read them. Maybe I should reread them, because then if I talk about them in a video, I'd actually be able to explain them well. But they're just beautiful. Just take my word for it and read them, you know? Anyway, so those are my favorite series. Again, there are more where this came from. A lot of them happen to be Christian fiction, so they're in a different video. There are some series where like I loved the first one and then the others kind of just weren't as good. Some where I have only read the first one and I'm excited to read more, but I just haven't yet, so they can't quite fit in this category. Maybe I'll do an updated video in like a year or two of finally finishing those series and adding them to the list. But I hope that you enjoyed this. If you have read any of these series, let me know. I always love talking about books with people, online, in person, all the things. If you have a favorite series that you think I might like, maybe I haven't read it, and feel free to suggest it to me, because again, always looking for more books to read. This series here, I'm excited to start, because I think that from what I know about them, I think I will like them, but I just haven't read it. It's chunky for a first book, and I'm a little confused as to the order that they go in, because they all have different numbers and stuff. Anyway, but I'm excited to read this because I feel like it's sport, but it's got depth to it, which I really appreciate. Anyway, and then of course there's other books where like they're by the same author and they're kind of slightly interconnected, but they're not fully a series, that I also love. Anyway, those are the books. I've been talking too long. I need to have a big drink of water right now. But I hope you enjoyed watching my favorite series, and I will see you in the next video, whatever that may be. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all the different things that help me build this little corner of the internet that I've started to create. I really appreciate you all for being here, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. God bless you. Bye.